Hello and welcome to this edition of the Kingsman and the CyBUr Guy podcast. I am one of your co-hosts, Darren Mott, retired FBI Supervisory Special Agent, co-founder and director of cyber operations for Five Eyes Limited. And with me, as always, is my co-host, Mike McQuade, the co-founder and director of, well, it was Threat Intelligence, but I guess you got a promotion. So explain what your new title is, because I don't even remember. You told me an hour ago. I already forgot.
So it was counter threat intelligence. However, our business associate John said it sounds better to say commercial threat intelligence because it sounds more business-like rather than military or government. So I've been internally promoted by myself to commercial threat intelligence director.
Congratulations. Let's be honest. You just wanted the extra vanity metrics on LinkedIn. That's all that's about. So we get it. So it is what it is.
I'm about 55, so you're damn right I wanted those vanity metrics.
Yeah. So this particular episode is audio only because it's a very sensitive topic, and our guest, we're protecting her identity. So we're only going to talk about her first name. We're not going to show her face. So that's why this is audio only, because of the things she does. She kind of has to stay in the shadows, if you will, because this particular episode is going to talk about physical security. We've talked about cybersecurity for the last several episodes, but part of the Five Eyes model is a 360-degree security methodology, with 120 degrees of that being cybersecurity, 120 degrees being physical security, and 120 being threat intelligence. So we're going to talk about the 120 degrees that is physical security. So Mike, you got some background into it, so why don't you, and you're the one who introduced me to our guest, so I'll let you introduce her. So talk a little bit about physical security, why we're talking about it, and then we'll get to our guest and hear all the magic that she brings to this particular field.
No worries. So physical security, I don't need to give it an introduction. It's the name's on the tin, right? So everybody knows what physical security is. However, when people start speaking about security, whether it's cybersecurity or physical security, they speak about it as in its own entity. They don't combine the two. Not often, anyway. I don't see it often. And both of them complement each other, and they're both just as vitally important as the other one. So when it comes to the cybersecurity side, it's all well protecting your systems. It's all well, getting firewalls, VPNs, all that good stuff. But if somebody can walk through your front door, start, causing physical mayhem by putting USB drives into computers, or being able to, go into a building, take a picture of somebody's ID card and be able to take a copy of it for getting access at a later date. These are the things that companies don't sometimes think about. The same with physical security. Again, it's all, you've got security at the front door, you've got locks on the door, you've got CCTV cameras everywhere. So again, you can invest heavy in the physical security side, but if you haven't got cybersecurity, then what's the point? You need to have both to complement each other. So today's guest, Victoria, when did we meet Victoria? It was about a month ago, 2 months ago?
Months ago, I think. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, 2 months ago. So we had a similar background, met on LinkedIn. It seems to be all the good relationships happen over LinkedIn, I think. That's when they all seem to happen. That's the place to be to meet new people. So we met 2 weeks ago, and we started having a conversation, got a similar past. We've done similar jobs in our careers, and it was like, oh, this is so cool. Like, and then we've spoke like every week since then, and it's been so awesome. And it was like, it'd be great to get you on the podcast for you to be able to tell the audience why physical security is just as vitally important as cybersecurity. So, Victoria, can you start by sharing your background and what drew you into the world of physical security, and specifically the pen testing side, the sexy stuff, the stuff that people want to hear?
Okay, so my career didn't start in security. So originally I was supposed to be an engineer. That's what I was going to do as soon as I left school, and circumstances happened and I went into performing arts to gain my confidence back. So I studied performing arts. I did my student teaching while I was there as well. And it was in my very first year of student teaching that I was approached by a police officer that I knew, who asked me if I could come in and help with some training with the police. going over an actual situation. So I did that, and I did it for a few months, and then I found it too difficult to keep going over the story again and again. So I asked them if I could create a character for them to get the same outcome, to which they agreed. And I carried on training with them. And then from that spiraled into, right, okay, who can we train now? And I started training the fire service, the ambulance, and then it gathered momentum. So I did that for 13 years. And throughout that, I started to see a lot of cracks in training. A lot of teams who you would think work together were working away from each other because they were all trying to do what their job was on. So, sorry, I should explain that these scenarios that we did got bigger and bigger. So we ended up working on terrorism scenarios of what everyone should do. We did a lot of multi-agency exercises, and that's where I began to see where there was flaws within different things, because everybody was so stressed and trying to do their job and what they needed to be there for. And they were all trying to not get in each other's way. And there was certain blurred boundaries where people didn't know whether that was the job of maybe the police or that was the job of the fire service. So there was a lot of different things that were happening, and you could see that there was a problem within security, and there was a breakdown of trust, and there was a lot of vulnerability within these services as well, because people weren't feeling listened to. And that's where it started.
This is a great example that there's no textbook way answer to how to start a career, because some people think you pick up a book and there's a clear direct route into starting a career. So your career direction's gone into physical security, but you started off doing acting. Now, how many people took that route? Is the statistics got to be very, very low, right? Did you find by starting off your career in acting before you went into doing what you were doing, which we'll touch on later on, did you find that helped? And if it did help, what is that skill set you had that was different and made you give security training a better twist than it already presently had?
So I think the first shock to me was how people react when you say you're an actor. It's kind of like, so if we were going in past security to get into somewhere and you'd say, I'm an actor, they go, what have I seen you on? Or have you been on TV? Or well, you know, and there was this kind of like, oh, they're not really any sort of threat, let them through kind of things, which was really interesting, because you were like, oh. And then it became this almost a game with the clients. They'd say to me like, well, how did you get in? And I'd go, oh, I walked in. Or they'd go, did anyone ask you for your ID? And I'd be like, no, they just asked me what TV programs I've been on. So then this whole thing started to go, oh my goodness, I was getting into all these places, and luckily people knew I was already coming in, but then I'd have to walk back and get my ID because I hadn't actually got myself a lanyard for being in there and stuff. So that was very different. And also it really helped me to engage with people being an actor, because sometimes, especially when I very first started out and I was really young and going into these places which were very male dominated areas, I kind of had to put on like my brave face to get in there and kind of be like, yeah, I do know what I'm doing. And, you know, so that helped me personally. And everyone was great who I worked with. So it just gives you that little bit of confidence, I think, and adaptability, which has really helped in everything I've done since.
Yeah, of course. I mean, you mentioned earlier that there was flaws with security training. You know, whether it's sort of top three, top five, whatever it may be. What was sort of the top flaws that you noticed when you walked in and you were like, this needs to change dramatically?
I think just how disjointed things were. Like when we were doing like the debriefs at the end of all of the training, people were saying like, oh, this should have happened, but it already had, but the people weren't being listened to within the teams. But as like playing casualties and things like that, you kind of go unnoticed. Like especially if you're unconscious or whatever, you're hearing the conversations around you and you're hearing really how invisible some people are feeling. And then when it gets to the debriefs and they're all getting told off for not doing that, it's not that they didn't do it, it's that they weren't being heard, they weren't being listened to when they were trying to do that. So So that was what opened. So it wasn't necessarily like, wow, you can see that visibly within security. It was this thing of, there was a lot of vulnerable people working within there. And then you also get to know people personally. And, you know, when you've been working with them for so long and you're hearing these stories, and there's this just constant vulnerability. And then starting working with some of the guys that I've worked with from the different services, and I'm then learning about the security side from getting involved in their courses. Then you start to see where it becomes really dangerous when people feel invisible. So
I'm slightly cheating here because I've spoke to you off the record, and you know I've been able to gather intelligence from our conversations, and you are in the process of starting your own podcast coming down the line.
yes.
And the main reason that you're starting the podcast is you think that men don't have a voice to sort of be vulnerable, is that everybody has to be alpha male. It's like we're not allowed to talk about feelings, and you know men aren't allowed to be depressed and are not allowed to have mental health issues, but you want to sort of be like bring those barriers down where men can openly discuss, you know, the things that you're not allowed to. It's not that you're not allowed to, but you feel obliged that you can talk about these things.
Mm-hmm.
When you were going for these training exercises and you were working with men and women, you were talking about that people in the course were feeling vulnerable. Did you see that with men as well, or was it just predominantly women?
As in what, sorry? The women feeling vulnerable?
Yeah, you were saying when you were doing these courses that people didn't have a platform to speak, they felt vulnerable, they weren't allowed to like say what they were thinking and stuff like that. Did you find that with men as well, or was it more predominantly women?
Oh yeah, no, it was the men that I really seen the vulnerable side to the men. Like you could hear it, like you could hear it in the training, you could hear it afterwards, you know, when they're drinking the tea and chatting and stuff. I could, because I was working with predominantly men, I heard a different side to the guys. So like I have a really good like relationship with loads of the guys that I've worked with, and it's from seeing that side to them. You see it on TV, and like you see it in settings where women are talking about issues that they're having, but I was getting to see that from the guys' side of stuff, about them worrying about money, about worrying about them being away. One of the things that really got to me on one of the things that I did, it was like a recreation of a really bad traffic accident. And I noticed that one of the casualty carers who was on scene, when he got near to the car, they said to him, "You go and do that because you're really good at that." So then to me, that was like, oh, okay, this is the guy that gets sent to everything because he's really good at it. And he might be really good at it, but he might be really struggling because he's being exposed to this constantly and constantly. So I spoke to him about it. And, you know, that was when one of the services that I worked with offered to put me on their trim course to learn more about it, because I was having these chats, but I was saying to them, I don't really know how to respond to these conversations, but all these people are starting to open up. But this is where, you know, if someone's really good at their job and they're doing it constantly, it's, well, look at what they're actually doing. What are they being exposed to? If they're having to control the casualty and look after the casualty every time, that's definitely having some impact on them. So
Darren, we're going to have a session here, right? Me and you, mate. We're going to have a session. We're going to have a heart-to-heart on this one, okay? We're going to debunk that men cannot be vulnerable and sensible, okay? So we've both come from a government environment, so let's have this conversation. When you were part of the FBI, did you see or witness what Victoria's talking about right now, where like men couldn't, you know, open up? They had to be like men.
Sure. I mean, it's not something I focused on, so it wasn't really I had other things to worry about, whether, you know, Joe on my squad's feelings. But it depended on your relationship, right? If you were in a leadership role, then you kind of had to take a little more of a, I don't want to say, you're like the parent for the squad. So you got to kind of pay attention to what everybody's kind of going through. And certainly I had people on my squad that were going through things and would come to me and say, you know, here's a situation I'm dealing with. And I fortunately had, I think, a good enough relationship that they knew they had a problem. They could come talk to me about, here's the situation I'm dealing with. And so I got to do A, B, and C. So there was certainly that. But if that requires that relationship between the leaders and the subordinates to be in that space, right? I certainly work for leaders where I was going to tell them anything. If I had, if I was in the middle of a heart attack, I wasn't going to them and saying, hey, I can't breathe, because they'd be like, suck it up, man. Go do your job. Yeah. So they certainly have those leaders, but I think it depends on it's everybody's different.
Yeah, I mean, you said a really good phrase there that I've heard so many times throughout my career, just suck it up. And it's like your legs hanging off, and it's like, just suck it up. And it's like, it's kind of like one of those ones that it's like, you wouldn't say that to a woman, right? But for
Sure.
guys, it's perfectly fine to hear that and say that. And it's like, guys have emotions as well. We're just not, we've not really got the space to be able to show those emotions. So obviously, you were in the FBI for quite a long time. Did you notice as time was going on in the FBI that it was increasing with people having problems, or do you think it was always there from the beginning?
Oh, I'm sure it was always there from the beginning. It just,
but as time went on, did you think it got?
Well, time went on, it became more prevalent, or became more aware of it, because as the climate changed and mental health became a thing to deal with, then there was more acceptance of, hey, I have a problem, I'm going to go talk to somebody about it. We had counselors and all sorts of specific people in roles to help you with those kind of things. Sorry, I had a little cough there. But I mean, we had what's called EAP, Employee Assistance Program. If you had a problem, you could call a number and they could help. They could get you help if you needed it. We had a chaplain that came to the office once a week to talk to anybody who needed help. So, but I'm not sure what any of this has to do with physical security. We've kind of gone off of a rail here, so we need to straighten up the ship, but man.
Good to have these diverting conversations, right? But let's bring it back on.
So my thing with that link with that is the more people feel invisible, the more that it can be exploited.
Sure, absolutely, yes, correct.
So that's why it started to interest me, because doing the big training and the exercises with people and hearing it, and then going and spending time with the guys when they're doing like the security consultancy side, and they're saying, right, this is what you need to look out for, and this is insider threat, and and I'm like, wow. So insider threat then was something that I started to like look into, and that's then when the security journey kind of, well, it was after an incident, but I won't talk about the incident. Maybe I might talk about it later. But from doing a training scenario, something very similar happened not long after. And I was like, wow, I really want to look into the security side to this now, and how I can help in any way.
So, on the cybersecurity side, we talk a lot about how the weakest link for any network is the people, not the software, right? So on the physical side, you can kind of make a similar analogy where I'm going to assume most companies invest a lot of money in locks and security doors and the dials with the dial keys. I forget what they're called, but you dial, they got numbers on them. But not so they don't worry so much about the people piece. Do you find that from a physical security testing perspective, the weaker link is the humans, not the technology that protects the doors? Yes, because I think, especially in the UK, this is nothing against the people who work for any of the places that I've tested. It's the customer services is pushed to them so much of make sure you're smiling, make sure you're happy, the customer needs the great experience, and it's like they're so busy being focused on not getting any complaints, or now the age that we live in, someone taking out a phone and recorded them and sticking them on TikTok for being for doing something. They're so focused on that they're not utilizing the customer services skills to do an almost like soft interview on someone. So they give them all these different training and exercises, but there's not a lot of companies yet that are looking at, more now that are looking at the behavior detection side to it. But I think there's a lot of companies that just hire security, and the security is supposed to do everything, whereas
they could be working together on it. Like everywhere I've worked, I've always been like, you're my extra eyes, everybody. So we work together. You tell me if you feel anything's off, and we work together. Whereas a lot of people just go, oh yeah, we've got security in the building, they'll deal with that.
I've always found the insider threat part the most interesting, because you're right, it's the weakest link. And so we class ourselves as the good guys. Of course, we like to give ourselves the label as the good guys, but the bad guys call us the bad guys, and it's vice versa, right? So you've almost got to think like a bad guy when you're the good guy. It's like, what would a bad guy do in this situation to penetrate this building? So when we're going to now get onto you're doing the sexy stuff, because this is what everybody wants to hear. They want to hear the pen testing side, the sexy stuff. So when you were doing the pen testing, were you deliberately before, because obviously you've got to do like a recce before you go into the building, you've got to do your surveillance, etc. Were you, when you were doing recce's, doing surveillances, were you trying to spot who the weak link is, who would be potentially the insider threat, who would be the person who would keep the door open and you would tailgate behind them,
And
stuff like that? Were you looking for that?
For those of us not in Scotland or the UK, recce means reconnaissance.
No, that's a British one. Nah, that's not even a Scottish one. Yes, reconnaissance and surveillance.
Yeah.
Would you, even when you were going into the testing part and you're like walking to the building, would you try and look for who is that weak person that would just, they're going to fail the test?
I think everyone's different, really. I love the recce. The recce days are my favourite. Like, I love the recce days. We were talking about this the other day, where you're just gathering as much information as you can. And I was saying to you that on one of the days when I was doing the recceing, the smoking area is always a great area to hang out at, because everybody's stressed. So, you can get chatting to people, you overhear things because they're venting. And one of the great things is they've still got the lanyards on. So they've usually got their IDs on. So I was saying to you the other day, I got a guy and I was like, wow, your hat is so amazing. He had this like slogan on his hat, and I said, can I take a picture of it? Because I really want to find it on Amazon and then get it for someone. And he was like, yeah. And I just took a picture of his badge, and then there was my badge ready for the next day. And, checking out all the local pubs as well, because you know that some people are going to go to the pubs in the afternoon and they're going to be complaining about stuff, and they're going to be talking about what time they're working till, what time they start. So you get all this information, and you don't need to be in the building to get that information. So all of mine is done further away. You get a kind of feel of what everybody's like within the company. And then it just depends on what sort of a place I'm testing as to how I go in. And I'll always check with whoever I'm with if I can just do like a little test on the day that I'm doing a recce, if I see opportunity to do it. Because you might as well give it a go if you can see it. If you've got and this is where it gets really tricky, because, a lot of people tailgate, which I've had a lot of experience, and I've seen a lot of really bad things from tailgating.
Can you define tailgating for those who may not know what that means?
Oh, sorry. So when people come in at the same time as you, or you hold the door open, or they rush through at the same time, you've still got that thing about you want to be polite to hold the door open, but then so it's like, oh, what do you do? Like, do you hold the door? Do you not hold the door? But also, I have to be very careful with what I say with this, but when you're going into buildings, and certain buildings need a swipe card to get in, you lose track of where someone is unless they're swiping the card.
Yep.
And I've known a company that has not had any idea of where this person's been for a very, very long time from working in. Like, no card was ever swiped.
So he tailgated the whole time, or what did
yeah. So I watched him in a context of what he was doing, and I was like, he'd make a great pen tester. And then I was like, oh no, he actually works here. And then when it was checked and the person hadn't ever swipe that card. So you don't know where that person's been when they've been working there. So it is really important, especially if you've got like check-ins for certain rooms that people go in, is that holding a door open, they need to know what is it nicer to be polite, or is it better to say, I'm going to shut the door so you can swipe in because we have to swipe in? But that's how a lot of it's done.
So I'm glad you also at the beginning there you talked about doing the pen testing from a distance, because that's also so vitally important. Like you don't have to walk in the building, because again, this is what bad guys will do, right? They'll target a building. They'll, like you did, they'll try and get a picture of somebody's ID card. They'll try and get a picture of people's faces. They'll try and build up that intelligence there. And especially, I don't know about you, Darren, in the US, how you guys treat alcohol lunches on the lunch break, but in Britain, an alcohol lunch is tradition. It's like, especially in London, everybody piles into a pub in central London. So all you need to do is target a building, get some pictures of people's faces, identity cards, sit in a pub that's across the road from that building, and when people pile in at lunchtime, all you've got to do is listen to conversations, because again, I also don't want to say too much, but I've done this as well, and I've targeted buildings that's TS environment and sat in the pub, and when people come piling into the pub, they start talking about TS things that they shouldn't be talking about, and little do they know I'm behind them listening to everything that they're saying. So have you had experience that as well, Victoria, where you just sit in a pub, you're waiting for people to pile in and you listen to what they're going to say?
So much. And if you're trying to record for a client of what you're picking up on, part of you wants to go, shut up. Oh God, shut up. You're like talking too much. So yeah, you find all sorts of things out. It's like, and depending on who you work for, I mean, I've had a few funny ones where, like, because we test different places or you test different residences, and you can sit in like a local pub and find out all the gossip about the person you're testing, like shocking information. And it's crazy how much the staff know about different people who work there as well, which is information that you can use to get into places. So yes, I've heard a lot.
So Darren, is that common in the US, like lunchtime booze?
No.
1 hour, get in there, fire down, get drunk, and then back in?
No, well, yeah, so we're going out for lunch, but not drinking. Most companies are against that idea. Not all. I'm sure there's certain industries, but anywhere I've ever worked, that's a no-go. That's a no. Maybe law firms. I don't know. Again, maybe I'm in the wrong industries, but certainly where I've worked, I mean, I was a teacher, right? Pretty not going out to lunch and drinking if you're teaching. So that's not going to work out. FBI agent, that's a no-go because you're carrying a gun, so you can't really do that. And then clear defense contractor, same idea. So
Darren, we were just talking about there, like you target a building and you want to sit in the establishments around the building hoping somebody's going to come in. Did you in the FBI get that type of training where it's like, I don't know, like, because you were posted in different places at FBI, like different locations. Each location you go to, did you get almost read the riot act, like, do not go into this pub or do not go into this building because it's known that there's threat actors who sit in this building and wait for people in the FBI to start talking? Because
really.
I got that when I was in the government.
Sure. So I worked in DC, right? With all the embassies and all the, Germans walking around, Russians walking around, Chinese walking around, all that kind of stuff. So you kind of had to, there was certainly an awareness training, but did people pay attention to it? For the first week, probably they did, but then you get lazy. I mean, you're supposed to, when you leave the building, you're supposed to take off your ID card and put it in your pocket. But not everybody did, and that's the same everywhere. I mean, whether I was in Charlotte or Cleveland or whatever, I mean, there are certainly people that would walk out and forget to take their badge off, and you may say, hey, you might want to, take off your ID and stick it in your pocket. Oh yeah, sorry about that kind of thing. But sure, there's training on it, but it's not recurrative training. Like we would certainly have yearly training on bloodborne pathogens and IT security and, whatever, how to do passwords. I don't really remember counterintelligence training where there was certainly stuff when you go outside, don't talk about, especially if you work in a TS environment, don't talk about that outside of the skiff, right? But that was part of IT training. But whether people, and then a lot of times it was the same training for 7 years. So you got to your 6th year. I'm like, yes, I've seen this 6 times. I know it. I'll click through it real quickly. How quickly can I go through this training? And most companies are going to be like that. And even if they work in sensitive matters, obviously Victoria knows it. I mean, have you ever had a time where you sat in the pub or you sat in the restaurant and never heard anything? No one's talking at all?
No.
Yes, exactly. There you go. Or go out to the smoking thing and where they're like, so how do you think Manchester United is going to do this week?
You hear a little bit of normal conversations, but if you work in a pair, so if I've got someone else with me, then what I'll do is I'll say something loud enough to trigger a conversation, because you get that, like even when you're out, like just out with your friends or your partners, and you hear someone going, oh yeah, I got a new phone the other day, and someone goes, oh yeah, by the way, that phone, and it'll bring that conversation into their conversation. So we try and do a little bit of social engineering as well in that context. So I'll be like, oh my God, I can't believe that they didn't let me go the other day at the normal time I finish. And then that then starts a conversation there, because that was allowed.
So when you do all this and you compile your report and you find all this information, you're able to get in, you're able to duplicate the lanyard and all that stuff. How receptive is the leadership, who I assume paid for you guys to do this, right? Test our security, because they probably think we're good. You ain't gonna get anywhere close. You're not gonna get close to any of this stuff. Where you probably are standing outside the CEO's office with a fake bomb, as Mike is like to do. So what is their reaction when you say, well, here's all we found and here's what all your employees are doing?
So usually, I mean, they do want to know, but I don't think they want to know as much.
Yeah.
It depends. If I'm working for someone else, then they might go, right, we're just going to tone your report down a little bit and just break that bit to them gently. I don't know. It's always been good. It's always been really good. I think the thing for me that's always been really interesting is because they don't know who I am before I go in. I mean, it's usually someone else dealing with everything, and then I'll go in. They're really shocked when they find out who it is, or when they watch back on the cameras. They're like, oh, we didn't expect it to be who it is. Because I think everybody always looks for like the combat boots and combat trousers and them sneaking in, and they don't expect someone to just blatantly walk in with a clipboard, or with purpose. They're looking for someone sneaking about. They're not looking for it being right there. So I think that's always been the biggest shock, and I think that's always helped them progress. So I know a lot of the people that I've tested for before, they use the videos for further training for them, where they've been like, spot the person who's breaking into the building.
What's the funniest method you use to get in that even the owner's like, how did that happen?
Basically, I've got to be careful what I say, but I was dressed for kind of like a more construction style role, and kind of walked in and went, I don't want to be here. Football's starting in a minute, so I'm going up, and then I'll be out. And they just went, okay.
So just authority. You just had authority and said, I got to do this and I got to go. Well, you see that in movies, right? They always have they bring it like, well, is it Mission Impossible with the fire truck? Yeah,
it's like I don't want to be here, so I'm just gonna go up and go out.
Have you ever shown up with like 12 pizzas and said, I'm here to deliver to the 12th floor? I can't get my badge out.
No, I've never done anything like that. It's really hard though not to do it in like your personal life, like like when you go into anything and just like you're like, oh, I'm going watching something, I'm gonna see how attentive the people are, and sometimes that ends up happening. It's like, although I've got every right to be there, I've got tickets or I've got passes for whatever, it's still interesting at how many places don't even check, which is scary. And there is a lot of incidents, and now it's getting it's hard because there's a lot of people who are doing it online, but they're calling, like they're saying that they're auditors, which sometimes that makes things really, really difficult, because if you are actually protecting a place, which has been the case in the past, where they have had different security in place and they put different measures on, and then someone turns up with a drone trying to audit somewhere and put it out on YouTube, that makes it really difficult because they don't realise the security measures that are around them buildings and what's being protected. So I think people need to do it more the correct way so that people don't get hurt. And it's fun to do it the correct way.
Have you ever been arrested doing it?
No.
That's a shame. Come on.
I've never been caught doing it. I've never been caught.
Well, there you go. Never been caught. It's hard to be arrested if you've never been caught.
I mean, one of my teachers would tell you that it was like 8 hours I was in a building for, and he was like, "Get out now, right? You don't need to leave." So yeah, sometimes I can overstay my welcome, but I have too much fun when I'm in there. So I love like changing into different things that I'm finding when people leave the uniforms lying around work. So I get changed into different things and get to know everybody on the teams. Go to the gym. I've been to the gym.
So Victoria, tying both of them together, the cybersecurity and the physical security side. So last week's podcast, me and Darren were talking about like the OSINT side of things, like the dark web side of things. When you were doing all the physical stuff, were you going on people's social media pages to check them out even further? Were you doing that open source intelligence side, whereas try and get as much intelligence as possible so that, because if you go on somebody's Facebook and they publicize their life all over it, you know, they've got this car, they've got this type of dog, they've got, you know, they went on this holiday. You've got all that intelligence that you can use at your disposal. So it's like if you enter a conversation with somebody and you saw that last month they went to Portugal, you could start the conversation about Portugal and they'll be like, "I was in Portugal last month," and you're like, "No way, were you?" And oh, wow, what was it like in Portugal? And because I always found that when you're doing the physical pen testing and you need to start a conversation, the first line is the hardest part because it's like, how do you enter the conversation? Whereas if you've got something that you can enter the conversation with and you know they're going to react, it makes it so much easier. Would you agree?
Yeah. See, if I'm working with someone, then, you know, I always have that conversation and then kind of catch someone's eye and be like, bring them into a conversation. So it's not so much directly at them. But yes, I love social media for that reason, because people post everything on there like crazy. Like you could pretty much find, so when you test in places, you can pretty much already find the passes on like Instagram a couple of hours before because people post them. I know there was like there's been pen testers who've done it where they've gone to big like arena sports events because the passes have already been online. They're like press passes because people are so proud to be at these things. They don't think about the consequences of it. But yeah, you can pretty much find out everything online and then you meet someone I mean, the ongoing joke with me and some of the guys that I work with is how many times I go, "Oh my God, that must be fate." Like, but it's not. It's like because of everything from social media has told me. So, so that's a classic line. So if anybody hears that who's listening to your podcast, you might be stood with a pen tester. So.
And this falls back to you don't know who you're talking to, do you? You literally have no idea who you're talking to. You could think it's the most innocent, sweet person in the world, and they're there to gather as much information out you as possible, purely from malicious intent. That's all it is.
But that's that worrying thing is that people are so trusting with so much information and they put so much about themselves online. Like you wouldn't go around showing people, I'm doing this, sorry, I know it's an audio only podcast and I'm like using my hands a lot, but you wouldn't go throwing a photograph in somebody's face constantly going, "This is what I've eaten today and this is where I've been and look at the pictures of my kids," and you know, so you wouldn't do that in everyday life. So you know, it's scary. Like it's really scary what people put online, but what's even scarier is that people don't realize how easily accessible things are. Like not just the photos, but conversations with you guys, you know, knowing that all these like people emails and passwords and everything can be there somewhere existing online. and people are just closing their eyes and going, if I can't see it, it's not happening. But they really need to, because otherwise we'll do, and I think I've said before to you guys, otherwise we'll do what we always do and do something after something bad has happened, where you've got every opportunity to do something before. And the thing that I wanted to say is, if it's a company that has physical security, you need cyber before anything else. Because otherwise we'll just find out. If you've got no policies in place, we'll find out. We'll get someone to find out for us. We'll do all this stuff, and it's easier for us to get to you cyber before it is physical.
Preach it, Victoria. Me and Dan are right at the back of the room. Preach it, shout it, because we are the converted. We are the converted.
It really is. Like, it's easier to get something, into a building. It's easier to get something that would corrupt a system into the building without having to put a person in there. Mm-hmm. People will openly, if I leave a laptop somewhere knocking about on my recce day, someone's going to take that in for me. They're not going to leave it outside. And it's like, you need to be careful with that as well. It's like, it's not just about the hi, hello, politeness. It's, you bring in something in that potentially has never been in that building before. So, we don't need to do anything, over to you guys, kind of thing. So it's crazy. It's crazy that people aren't seeing the issue with cyber. Everybody's walking around with a phone in the hand. Everybody's got a computer. You've got a company laptop, or you've got your own laptop, and you've got all this technology. But then all you're bothered about is having cameras. You've got loads of cameras in your building. But what happens if someone just shuts all that down?
Yep. Hackers can get in the cameras and shut that down. They can lock it down. You ain't getting in, and then the bad guys come through the front door and they do the physical damage, and not a trace. So we were talking there about the Austin side, right? And I remember I used to do this, and I wonder if you used to do this as well, Victoria. Was if you were checking out a building, right? You would, for example, like you're in the pub, right? You would go on Google, and Google gives you all the stats of data, right? Where it'll give you the busiest time of that pub on the day. So it'll be like between 12 and 1 is the busiest time of the day. So as being the bad guy, you would go, well, why is it busy between 12 and 1 o'clock in the afternoon? And it's right across from this TS building. So you would then go, well, if I'm going to get anything, I'm going to go in at 12 to 1 o'clock. So when you were doing all, is that as far as how you used to go as well? You would look at, the data that Google gives away, where you can use that to your own competitive advantage?
Yeah, you can use all that. You can use the AI, different things about, where people go, what they do. You use their own personal social medias to find out what they're into. So if if you're in the area and you're there for the night doing the recce, that they like to go to this place to eat, or they go to this, where the local supermarkets are, to where people are, to just conveniently bump into people. So, but online has got so much information, and now especially with AI, you can just ask a question and find out anything you want to on there. And you can also look into different scandal as well, what's gone on within them places. So you've got a better conversation to talk to them about at the busy pub time.
So again, I'm slightly cheating here because we've already had this conversation and I already know the answer, but it was a good story. And this is something people love, is the stories, right? They always like to hear the real life stories. You would tell me a story, if you're happy to share, where you chucked something over the fence. Do you remember this story?
Yeah.
Are you happy to share this story? Because this was a good one.
Yeah, it's the purse.
That's the one, go for it.
So it's just to show people how easy their cyber is kind of corrupt, is to put a lovely photograph. So people listening to this, please listen to it to do something about it. I don't want a load of people doing it, but put a pen drive into a purse and put a lovely family photo in there, and the person just walked it straight in. So I didn't even need to go in. It got in there for me without anything, because everyone was panicking. Oh, how are we going to get this in? How are we going to get in the building? I'll go in, I'll do this. And it's like, no, print off a picture, pop it in the purse. It looks like a woman's purse. No one's going to think anything of it, and it's already in the building then. So then they could say, this has got into the building and we're going to like shut systems down and this, that, and the other. And it all went up into the report.
And that was, so you're assuming that someone would find the thumb drive and stick it in and see what's in there, right? Is that the assumption?
Well, yeah, because humans will do it for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, I mean, there's a famous case in the U.S. called Buckshot Yankee, and what happened? Russian intelligence services dropped thumb drives into the parking lots at U.S. facilities in Europe. A private or a corporal walking through the parking lot finds a thumb drive. What's the first thing he thinks? Ooh, free porn. Sticks it in the computer and then compromises the Pentagon system. So they end up, because of that case, the U.S. government, or at least the Department of Defense, prohibited the use of USB drives or USB slots on computers working. They automatically disabled them. So because of that. So yeah, certainly a proven methodology.
I've had the reverse of it where I've played the really ditzy person and walked into a security office and gone, oh my God, look how complicated this all looks, and sat down in front of the computer and stolen all the hard drives. And walked out with them all. And they were like, please bring them back. We need them. I was like, right, okay, that's fine. But they've gone. They've been missing for about 5 hours before they realised.
What were they doing while you were in there taking them out?
They were sat there talking to me, and I just had my hands behind my back and I was talking, and they were pointing and showing me what the cameras do, and
wow,
yeah,
that's impressive.
You went into this situation as some random person, and the security officers are just showing you the systems and the cameras.
Yeah. It's amazing how much people are willing to give information to people who look like they don't know what they're on about. Because they want to, because it's that I'm seen what I'm doing is important. I'm going to show you that this is important, and it's really sad, like in a way that they just want to show you what they're doing, but it's like you've got to be careful.
Have you gone back to a company you did a pen test on and said, here's all the things you did wrong, here's the things you probably need to fix? Did you come back 6 months later and find they hadn't fixed them and you did it all again?
Yeah, well, I don't tend to go back because they all tend to look out for me.
Sure, but you and your partners or whatever, somebody else do that.
But yeah, there's been places that haven't fixed anything at all. And then there's been places where you go, like, someone's tried to go in the next day and they get in touch with you to say, like, someone's just like shut the whole thing down because it's got again. So some of them are really good, but it's really sad when you see that nothing's changed. Or when they want to take it. The one thing I always say when I'm doing pen testing is, please don't punish anyone for anything. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, I don't want to do it. Like, if you're going to punish them for doing it, then I won't do it. So that's kind of how my rules are for that, because, they don't know. They're not aware. And just to get rid of someone or, punish them for something, unless it's a massive, massive mess up. But I don't want to think that I'm going in there and someone's going to lose a job because I've got in. Because then that way, you're not teaching anybody anything. That person then will be more aware next time not to do it. But if you hire someone else, then we're probably going to just pen test through them. So it's just a kind of repetitive cycle. And you do feel bad because you know that people are doing it because they're being polite and they want to help. Not because they're doing it maliciously to kind of go in, steal everything, like find out all this information and take photos. It's that they think they're doing a good job by being polite, and sometimes they're too scared to be told off. They're more worried about what the consequences are if this crazy woman who says that she belongs here, or all the different places that I've been in. Like if you're somewhere private and you're testing someone's like private property as well, and they've got workers, they react exactly the same as if it's a big place because they don't want to upset their client. So it's making sure that whoever they work for feels comfortable enough to go, am I all right to stop this person, or what should I do? Like you'll go into some of these big places and you'll say like, right, let's refer to like your SOPs, and they'll go, we don't have any. It's like, what do you mean you don't have any procedures in place for any of this? And it's like, oh, well, we thought that was like the security's job. And then they'll be like, no, but we thought that was theirs because that falls under that. And then they realize that nobody actually knows what to do in the event of anything happening. So, or they'll go, oh, we've got a file on the computer. Okay, well, if your computer's out, what are you going to do? You got a hard copy of it. Like, that's another thing. Oh, yeah, we got an email about it. That's great. But if it was a cyber pen test and everything goes down, like, what do you do? Like, how do you know who you should call, or, you know? So
That's one thing that we always say as well, that if companies, from the cyber side, certainly, if they're going to do training, if they're going to do the cyber pen test, and the result is not what they were looking for, it's a failure, again, we would encourage as well that nobody gets punished, because it's the only way people are going to learn. Humans are going to make errors. Like, no human is perfect. So you can't punish people for, failing in a test environment. You can't start, giving people their P45s and sacking them. It's like, it's a test environment. It's the only way people are going to grow and learn. Like, especially if they've never been in a security environment before, they're not security conscious thinking. So this could be the first day for them to security. This could be their first opening day to security, and they've done, they've let you in through the front door.
mm-hmm.
Like, just give them a debrief and say, look, I think British people are worse for this because we like to be overly polite, don't we?
Yeah.
Like, we will leave the door open for people, and we're like, we don't want to offend people and stuff like that. We're such a tolerant nation. So it's like, you will do stuff like that.
Yeah, but people bang into people, and the ones that someone bangs into you and you apologize for them, it's like, oh God, I'm so sorry. You don't want to offend anyone, and because it's so drummed into us of do not offend anybody and don't make anyone feel like uncomfortable. It's the first day, whatever. But now it's kind of more people are clued up to. People are just fitting into places. I think what we really need to be careful of is that what we see is a threat, like especially like in cyber and stuff, like with cyber, you're saying about emails, receiving work emails. Well, how do you know what to open? Who tells people within the companies? Like, do you sit them down and say, this is what something suspicious looks like, this is what you should be doing, this is what you should be doing with passwords, this is we spoke about it. This is what you should be using your email addresses for. So, this is all the sorts of stuff that people need to learn. And I'm so determined to tell everyone that if you need testing, your security testing, if you need some sort of security presence or cameras, then you definitely need something cyber. Because for every human, there's a computer, and humans are really vulnerable. They're really, really vulnerable. And the more vulnerable they are, the more the threat. And we're seeing this now more than ever in the world, is that everybody's worried and everybody feels threatened, and people do silly things and don't protect themselves properly.
And
you're preaching to the converted.
And for the U.S. listeners, Mike mentioned the P45 form. What the hell is that, we ask? It's a tax form the UK employers give to an employee who stops working for them. So those wondering what a P45 for, that's what that's for. So.
Translator.
You honestly, Victoria, you wouldn't believe the amount of debates me and Dan have had on how to spell a word correctly. Is it an S? Is it a Z? And double aims. Like, honestly.
No, the worst one was what Tylenol is. What you guys call Tylenol. I'm like, come on, that's not, what the hell?
Paracetamol.
Yeah, what the hell's that? I mean, come on, man. No, there's not a single U.S. listener knows what that is.
I say paracetamol as well. I say
whatever. I know that is.
So, Victoria, this is what the listeners want to know, and if you're happy to share, right? Then wait, this is the last thing, right?
Okay.
What was the most horrific pen test you ever done? Like, the results were so horrifically bad you almost felt embarrassed telling the company how bad it was.
Which you I can't tell you where it was.
No, I just, no,
No, no,
no,
like
no,
try and
no attribution.
redact as
Oh,
much information as possible. Just like, was there somebody who did something really funny? Was it like, what is the top pen test that sticks out to you? Like somebody done something stupid, or somebody did something silly, or it was just so
oh,
horribly bad. Or
I
even on your guys, even on your, like when you were doing the pen testing, was there somebody that did something on your team where it blew the whole operation up? Something, just
I
the
know.
top story that sticks out.
The top story that sticks out for me is the day that I went to the gym and everything. Like I had the greatest day ever. And I'd done the recce, the reconnaissance, the day, the day before, and I was like really, I don't know why, but because it was such a big company, I really wanted to push it to see like, because I was amazed that I hadn't been picked up on the recce, because I was trying to be, because there was a potential that I could switch out with someone, so someone could do the test, and it didn't really matter if I got blown on my recce, like that didn't matter, just so long as I got enough information for the other person. But no one was picking up on it, and I was like, okay, this isn't raising suspicion with anyone. This is a bit strange. And I was thinking, oh, I'm going to test it. And I was like, no. And that was like, I was in the building a lot and then out of the building. And the next day, I remember getting there. I can't tell you too much about it but I'll have to actually message the guy who was doing the test with me, because he'll laugh at this. So I got in there and I was like, yeah, totally need to go up onto this floor and do something because I haven't done it. And the guy was like, all right. Who are you? And I was like, oh, well, gave a name. And I said, I know your boss. And he was like, right. And obviously it was the name I could find online as well. And then the other tester was outside, sat in the car, and I texted him because obviously you use your phone a lot when you're working doing security. So I've got a good thing where I could look at someone and text them. And I said, I'm going to ring you, put on the poshest voice that you've ever heard. I changed his number really quick to the guy's name I just said. I was like to the guy, okay then, so you're going to check who I say I am. I'll just ring your boss now. And I got on the phone and the guy just shut down. And I said, right, I'm going to put you on to him now. He's saying that he's going to check. And I passed the phone over. And the guy was like, I'm really sorry. Okay, I'll let her in. Anything. And he let me in. And I had them asking me, did I want anything? Did I want any drinks? And I wandered around there for 8 solid hours. I had breakfast, I had my lunch and my dinner. I got to know people. I got changed. I put something in my bag. I stolen something on camera, and I'm looking at the camera. I'm putting it in my bag and going through drawers. I went to the gym, went and sat in the guy's office who'd hired me. Even went everywhere into the different like security cabins in different places, went in, made up a story of why I was there with a clipboard. I got changed at that point, and I was just like, oh my god. And that was that same thing, is everybody just wanted to be nice, but there were so many cards lying around and so many uniforms lying around, and and then you started picking up, like, one of the places that I've tested before where I've gone, oh my god, like, there's people actually stealing from here. You see all sorts of stuff when you're testing it. It was really bad. It was really, really bad. So we've had some though where I've had text messages off the people who've hired me and saying, we're watching you on the camera, we can't believe you're doing this, and like they're really upset. And I've had some absolutely crazy and creative characters. I was lucky enough to do some testing with one of my mentors, and he was great. He taught me a lot about it, and we've done some like really funny characters, and the more you make people laugh, the more they want to like spend time with you, which is really bad if you shouldn't be there in the first place.
That's amazing, isn't it, Darren?
That
That is wow.
That's what we're here for those kind of stories. Victoria, thank you so much for coming on, and I hope you'll come on again in the future now that you've got the podcast bug in you.
This is my very first.
Yeah, one thing I will say, when you start your own podcast, get a better microphone. You need a better microphone.
I will.
Okay.
I'm really sorry.
But don't buy mics. Mike bought a cheap one. His isn't that good anyway. So call me. I'll tell you what to get. All right.
Mine's just got a light on it. Yours doesn't. So
yeah, but no one can tell from your light.
Gucci.
Yeah. All right. Mike, any final thoughts before we kick out of here? We're here for a good
No,
time.
again, Victoria, thank you for coming on today. It was great to have the conversation about the physical security side, and we touched on the threat intelligence aspect. Gives us a break about talking about cybersecurity. So thank you for coming on.
Yeah, it was nice. It was nice to have someone else to talk besides just myself. So that was good. So if you have need more information about Five Eyes Limited, go to fiveeyeslimited.com. Victoria, you got a website you want to pitch?
No.
Okay, so you can't find Victoria, so you don't know who she is. You'll never know. So there's that. Victoria, thanks again. Mike, we will talk again next week when we talk more logistics. As you go about your week, know that knowledge is protection. If you can understand the threats targeting you, can assess your risk, proceed wisely. Thanks again for listening. We'll be back again next week with the Kingsman and the CyBUr Guy.